How about now? Okay. Sweetness. I don't know what's happening here. Yeah. I'm gonna try to... see. Okay. We got some people in here, I guess. Hey, Emmy. What did we get? I got a breakfast sandwich, McDouble, and then Party got a poutine. Okay. I don't know why the previous stream deleted. But yeah, we're back. Yes. Just letting people know in Discord. So anyway, I hope everyone is doing well. Just taking a look in here. So, while we wait for people to schmooze in, I want to chat about what's going to go on with this stream. Today it's going to be a little different, I think. I have some writing to do. I am doing a writing marathon. And the past couple of days, I haven't been feeling really well. I think it's like, I don't know, it's like a head cold. Sometimes I cough. And, yeah, I think I just kind of zoned out for 2 days. So I have to catch up writing on that. So in about 2 hours... either the stream will totally shift or I will cancel stream. Like I'll end the stream and I gotta go and do some writing. For those who are not in the know, Royal Road. So this is Royal Road here. Let's do... wait a minute. Royal Road. So Royal Road is a website where people can post their writing for free. And as you can see, it's kind of like a paradise for readers of all backgrounds. But there's definitely a skewing toward more male interest with isekai, progression fantasies, lit RPGs. It's a very... how can I say this? Science fiction, fantasy focused website. You can read stuff on it for free. You can get a bit of a Prime membership type thing if you want less ads. But basically we have these situations where people are posting their stuff here. This is a lot of original fiction. There's very little fan fiction in here. And twice a year they do they do a write-a-thon, which was introduced to us by our lovely Simp. So even though, I have other things on my plate, I decided I want to kind of, flex a little, try something out. So I've been doing a little bit of a write-a-thon that they've been running. I don't know if they... Yeah, so this is the write-a-thon. And right now it's, they will, like, they don't show it right now, but basically you can read people eventually. I think in a couple days they're going to show all of the people who are really serious. And I want to see if I can make that list. But I'm a short on words, so I gotta do some writing tonight. Emmy is out dashing. Oh, nice. Yeah, we just ordered on DoorDash. You do eat real food? Yeah. I don't know why you would assume we don't. Hello there, Willie. Hello. And by the way, I should warn you, everyone, that Chieko is very spicy tonight because some of my feeling unwell has to do with female hormones. So my tolerance for bullshit is very, very, almost non-existent at this point. Like we're talking like autistic bitch levels of spice. I have some good friends in my life who help talk me off of cliffs, but generally speaking, it is what it is. I died in Elden Ring by falling in the dumbest ways rather than being killed by a powerful bro. I mean, that's how I died in Elden Ring. A lot from falling. Usually backing off of chasms. That was my thing. Like, I'd be moving the camera around and I wouldn't watch where my feet were. And then I would just be like, oops, slipping right off a cliff. Miro's telling Leo to go left. Get good, bro. Oh, Epic, you're at work still? Oh, well, I hope work is going well, Epic. Feel better? Yeah, I'm hoping so. Oh, Shay is in here. Hello, Shay. I have more fall deaths in World of Warcraft than any other kind. Interesting. Playing Assassin's Creed 2. Hubby watching for the first time. Ooh, one of the best soundtracks, right, Emmy? The game keeps track. Thanks, Blizzard. Yeah, I mean, that can happen in many different kinds of games. There are actually some parts in the open world in Final Fantasy XIV where if you're not careful, you can die from fall damage, but most of the time you can't. Yeah. Epic is working the store on his own at the moment. If customers need me, they will ring the bell. Otherwise, Uncle Sam has his eye on them. Well, God bless Uncle Sam, I guess. That's great. Awesome. Today we're going to just... I don't even have a React video pulled up. I'm going to be honest. This is shambles. I've just been in a very interesting conversation. There's a book written by a guy. It would appear to tick all of the boxes off for a romance reader, right? It has vampires, it has romance, but apparently it's getting dragged. And someone shared with me a clip, and there are some issues with the writing. There's some issues with the imagery, and I think this is it speaks to a lack of communication on both sides and a lack of awareness and a lack of people taking the time to understand what the other sex is doing. And so a lot of I've been raging about it this week because there were some people who were equating We all know and love and support, right, chat? What was it called again? Yeah. Here we go. I found it. We all know and love and support wild stuff like this, right? Yeah, this is where it's at, right? And a lot of people might think, well, this means that this is what women want to, like, there was this whole discussion on Asmund's, one of Asmund's clips, where people were like, women want to be raped because they read books like this. Now, as chat knows, my chat, who has listened to my videos and heard me read sections from this book, know that no graping or draping or craping or what other words rhyme with the word that we're not allowed to say. But anyway, this is not, this by no means is telling bros that this is women want to go out and get graped by anyone. But I think there are some guys out there who take it one step further. They're not content to sit in comment sections and be complete weirdos and make assumptions about what women want based off of romance novels. They decide they want to write their own. Yeah, it's great. And some of them could be really good. And I think there is this kind of moral panic over certain writers because they're male. But I will say that the excerpt that I was given had a weird vibe. And the guys who wrote Billion Wicked Thoughts had already discussed this, okay? They had already discussed how men look at men's bodies and women's bodies is a little bit different than from how women look at women's bodies and men's bodies in the context of a romance novel. And I wrote to someone in my Discord that when it comes to the female gaze, okay, so let's not pretend that female gaze doesn't exist, right? When it comes to the female gaze, we have two gazes, right? We have the male gaze and we have the female gaze. Now, in my opinion, I have no problem with either people gazing at each other. Like, on a technical level, I think we should all enjoy each other, have fun. But when a male gaze writes a certain way, it's not gonna land well with a lot of female writers. And the reason is some male gazes don't empower the female in the right way. Okay, so the male gaze, unfortunately, we'll say sometimes, okay, I'm not going to say all the time, but sometimes disempowers the female, whereas the female gaze in a romance novel always empowers the male. So when it comes to the opposite sex, the women in some male-written romances come off as children, as slaves, as doormats, as objects. And this is what some women get upset about. And actually, I don't like it either. It makes me feel icky. Whereas a female gaze, when it's projected onto the male, is generally more empowering. Almost always empowering, because if the male is not empowered, then there's no point for the women to go after that man. So at its worst, the woman is graped. At its worst, the man is hyper idealized. So let's say the male figure and psyche is hyper idealized. So we could say false expectations are created. Now, both are bad. I think both are unhealthy, obviously, because raping is a crime and is a moral crime. But the female gaze at its worst with its hyper idealization, right? Creating false expectations is also, I think, very dangerous. And we should call it out. We should call it out. But no guy, generally, if you said, do you want men to be represented as strong and handsome and capable and responsible and loyal? Most guys will go, yeah, that's how I want to be seen. That's how I want guys to be seen. You ask a woman, do you want to be represented as being a doormat, as being stupid, as being a child, as being unable to decide whether you want to have sex or not? A lot of women, especially modern women, are going to say no. And at the end of the day, whether you're conservative or whether you're liberal, as a woman, no, almost no women want to be raped. No one wants to be seen as an object that you know, and be raped. That's just the way it is. But yeah. So we've been talking about that in the Discord. And so then Leo, our beloved vegetarian. I don't think he's a vegan. Vegetarian from Argentina with the thick Argentinian accent said, so what did 50 Shades of Grey do correctly? And the answer is it correctly empowered the male, but to such a degree that that male actually ended up on a certain level being legitimately psychotic. So it was kind of like the authoress was so terrible of a writer, she didn't know where the line was. Okay? So the execution of 50 Shades of Grey is terrible. But if you look at 50 Shades of Grey as a trilogy, it's about the Beauty and the Beast. It's the trope. It's about the woman transforming the man and healing the man, because Christian Grey actually is emotionally and mentally disturbed from his background, and he actually changes over time. Now, how does he change? Is it well executed? I don't think so. But that is the attempt, and that's what women want to believe. They want to believe that these rich, broken, powerful, competent men are going to fall in love with him and they will change him and make him better. But at the same time, he must maintain his alpha status without becoming a complete doormat slob. And so 50 Shades of Grey is poorly executed. There's no doubt about it. It's the writing is trash, but the trope is not trash. The trope is 100% like long-term, tale as old as time. I use that illusion deliberately. This is a common trope that a lot of women want to believe in. So, yeah. Are you talking about your favorite book? That's why women were split on 50 Shades? Exactly. I think if you asked any woman, hey, do you want to have a relationship with a good man, but you know you're going to have to heal him up a little, I think a lot of women will be like, I can fix him, right? Yeah. So I'm actually now very invested. I kind of want to read this apparent book that is apparently misogynistic. It's apparently obsessed with underage. Like, there's like references to underage stuff. So I'm kind of wanting to read this now. I want to read it and decide for myself. And I guess the reason why I want to read it and decide for myself is because at this stage, I do think women are jumping at shadows. When the male, so let's say, having fun, enjoying the female form, having fun, romanticizing attraction and desirable men. At the core, essentially, both males and females are the same. And I think it's absolutely important for women to understand that when a guy is enjoying the female form, he isn't necessarily shitting on average women. And the same thing with men. They have to come to grips with the fact that these men, in a large number of these books, are usually just an outlet for women to have fun. The problem is, which we saw in the film Inside Out, is when women start replacing their men with imaginary men. That's not good. And the same thing with the male gaze. If a guy is having physical interactions with his wife and he's imagining another person in her place, we got a problem, right? So this happens both ways, by the way. And I think women need to get off of their pedestal and their little high horse that they get on. And they need to recognize that they also have fantasies and they're also engaging in fantasies just as much as the guys are. But I've talked about this before, but I thought it was interesting to bring up. I'm going to maybe look into this book. I'm also going to look into dark romances because there's a lot of people who are equating dark romances with raping. So I'm going to be looking at that as well. Do you think having a lot of women in Hollywood with this romance genre mindset is what took writing to more interior psychological exploration rather than mythological and archetypal? Actually, it's both and. Okay. I believe in the 1800s, I would even say leading into the 1800s could have been as far back as even the Renaissance. So we have the Renaissance, which is the how can we say it? The exploration and glorification of the human form and creativity. Then from the 1500s to the 1800s, we had the slow ramp up. But the 1800s is the death of God, essentially. Darwin and Nietzsche and all of that stuff. So essentially, I think mythology died here. Mythology dies here. And this is where people actually started using the word myth to mean lie by this point. Then, because there was such a focus, and remember, 1800s wasn't also the death of God, but the birth of humanism. So with humanism came in modern psychology focus here. So this is like Freud. Jung, of course, was like the one little man in his little tiny crazy canoe going, no, let's get back. No one cared about Jung, poor guy. But there you go, Freud. And others. Freud is not the only one. Then we have modern times, wars and post-war to present times. Now, I still think in modern times there was a general education holds back idiocy. And what I mean by this is the general education still had a solid enough foundation that people were still, even though people no longer believed necessarily in faith or didn't necessarily believe in mythology, everyone had a general education. There was this general education that everyone knew who Daedalus was. Everyone kind of understood what the pantheons were. People had a reverence for the classics. Everything was going on as normal. Present times. So let's delineate this very carefully. Late 90s to present. Pomo Trojan horse carries in critical theory to unis. Destruction / questioning of classics and concepts of objectivity and canonical analysis. What I'm saying here is basically on the academic level, the universities basically shrugged off their fakeness that they've been kind of low-key hiding behind this kind of like nothing to see here, nothing going on. They came out and they were like, screw the classics, screw canon, screw objectivity. Analysis is what you make it. There's no such thing as objective analysis, yada, 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 culture. And they just went, woo! They went down into critical theory and all of that stuff. At the same time, so up in here during the modern time, I think things are getting a bit messy here. During the modern times, we will say rise of thrillers, mysteries, and psychological thrillers and books. Now, present tense time, continued investment of human psychology, absolute death, almost, I hate using absolutes, almost absolute death of mythological / archetypal power. Almost. It's not all gone, but it's hanging on by a thread as far as I'm concerned in terms of modern, like general concepts and stuff. Yeah. What do people think? What do people think here? Mythology? It's a myth. That's what they would have us believe. So I'll review it again. Ignoring this here. I think it began with the Renaissance. I have no beef against the Renaissance, but leading into the 1800s, there was this movement toward more focus on humans and human experience. And then with the birth of humanism, with the death of God, Nietzsche, with the birth of modern psychology, Freud, I think faith and the importance of spiritual, what I call the numinous, in writing kind of faded. Now, Jung was here at this point in time, around the time of Freud. Jung, fighting and failing, really, was fighting to hold on to dreams and mythology. He was fighting. He, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of optics, Jung failed. He wasn't able, and he and his disciples, because he had a whole bunch of people following him, they were unable to gain traction. Freud was just too strong. We led into modern times where general education, being slow to develop, still kind of held on. So people still had some sense of taste, some sense of calling back to the old times. But there was a rise in a certain trend, and now it's almost always about the human experience, to the point where it's almost impossible to have mythological or archetypal energy inside your books. Like, people don't even know how to create it anymore. It's very difficult. You forgot that German Romanticism was the answer to Enlightenment. It gave back the mythological and fantastical stories from Hoffman, Shelley, Poe, Stoker, ended up in old Hollywood. Gothic literature was too niche, Leo. I mean, there was an aspect of Gothic okay, so Gothic literature could have done something. So we'll put here Gothic literature attempting something. We'll put this 1800s to 1900s. Gothic literature attempting something, but Goth lit saying something meaningful was niche, believe it or not, and regular Goth lit for gals got super popular. Okay, that was another issue with Asmongold's chat. Holy moly. They were like, I walked into Barnes & Noble and I just realized like how big that section is. And I'm like, hello over there. Maybe you haven't been to a bookstore lately, but actually the romance section has always been fairly massive. And even if it wasn't always massive in the bookstores, it was always massive where women would be ordering books in. And it was always massive in the libraries. Like, I'm so confused by people behaving like this is something that just happened yesterday. It hasn't. Now, there was a lot of what we would call regular Gothic literature, like highly romanticized, Gothic literature, which was slightly made fun of by Jane Austen in Northanger Abbey. She lampoons it gently. Okay? So it was such a trend for this kind of weepy girl in the shadows kind of thing that Jane Austen decided to lampoon it very gently, I might add. She was very classy about it in Northanger Abbey. What a lot of people don't understand, Leo, and you might not know, is that Poe, for example, and Lovecraft, for example, like a lot of these authors were by no means massive hits during their time. Lovecraft was not big during his lifetime. He died of stomach cancer because he was starving because he couldn't make enough money. Okay? Like a lot of these Gothic literature classics were not actually popular when they were published because the classics were not following the tropes that the regular masses wanted to read. Okay? So we gotta take some of these books like your average. Do you think honestly, really, that your average farmer in backwoods England is going to be reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? The answer is no. Literacy was a massive issue among the lower masses. If they were reading, it was like these dime novels that they could get, right? So we might look back at an era and say, oh, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at this time period. Wow, such amazingness. Ooh, party. Did you get your stuff? I forgot. Sorry. You can take some of my teas. Do you want me to order a tea for you? Are you sure? Oh, I forgot my Maud's steep tea. Now I feel terrible. I knew I shouldn't have rushed it. Anyway. Jung's archetypes were a concept that started me on my actual writing journey. Oh yeah, I remember you saying that, Epic. I think that's so cool. Now we have whatever we have. Yeah. Depending on your Barnes & Noble section, floor space can be inflected by actual physical shelf spacing. Yeah, that's true too, Miro. That's true. I remember whenever I went to a grocery store as a kid, in the paper section, magazines, books, it was all romance books, novels for books. I'm telling you, Jonathan, I'm telling you. These men who are suddenly rolling into a bookstore and are like, what? There's what? Yeah. Hey, Chieko, hope you're having an awesome day. I was, and then I realized I forgot parties tea, and now I feel like a complete horrible person. They were also considered trash literature. Old Hollywood realized they were brilliant. Yes, so Leo, here's the thing. A lot of this literature was not even included in literary canon, and is still not included in some literary canons to this day. Strummer fail, yeah. Yeah. Guys, can chat give hugs to party for me? The average farm wife may be reading those novels, though. Maybe. I highly doubt it, Royal, though. Like, you do realize how bad literacy was during the Victorian period, right? You do understand why Mary Shelley is held up as being important. Does anyone here know why? Royal. Oh, man. Royal, do you want me to get on talking about Mary Shelley? Because right now I'm actually studying Mary Shelley and Frankenstein for a course that I'm writing. I'm revisiting it. Okay? I need to explain here, okay? Why is Mary Shelley considered amazing, okay? Number one, she wrote a book. Okay? That was not normal. And her mom was Mary Wollstonecraft, okay? Mary Shelley was not your average girl, okay? This was not average. And at this point in time, in the late 1700s up and through the 1800s, women did not get university educations. They were not highly educated. Now, there were middle-class women who would be reading, absolutely. And like I said, some women might be reading some kinds of stuff, like dime novels, stuff like that. Some women. But up until a certain period, women's literacy was a struggle, unless you were in a certain income bracket. However, it got to a point where a lot of women were reading, but they weren't reading difficult stuff. So I would say if women were reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, it would have been late 1800s. That's when they would have been reading it, probably. They wouldn't. I would not say a farm wife would be reading. Well, I mean, Mary Shelley didn't write Frankenstein until like 1818. But your average farm wife, we're talking about laboring women who worked in fields and in gardens, okay? I don't think a ton of them were picking up Frankenstein in 1818, okay? That's a hard cope over there. Few occasions. One girl who was the most literate in a workshop profession would be the one reading at night and retelling the following day to her coworkers. Oral storytelling. Yeah, that would be a thing. Not at all hot take. The only reason these men are rolling into bookstores is because there's certain people talking about it online. Yeah, they're probably going to go like, oh, it's going to be taken over by women's stuff. It's taken over by women's stuff. Yes, and where were you a year ago supporting male right? Anyway, I'm in the UK and bookstores got taken over by Romantasy now. It wasn't like this a year ago. Okay, I need to be very clear, simp. Romantasy is a completely different thing from romance. No one can deny that Romantasy is a big tidal wave that appears to have come out of... It appears to come out of nowhere. In fact, I'm surprised that UK is so late on the train. Oh man, party. Oh Lord. I feel like that one time when I like jammed a kid's foot in a bike. Anyway, awkward. Very cringe. I'm so cringe. Chat should tell Strummer that she is super cringe. How can I say this? What about party? See, I think Romantasy has been popular in the States for the past 5 to 10 years. It's gotten an extreme shift upwards because of the Barbara Streisand effect, in my opinion, and because there have been some shows that also kind of help perpetuate this engine. And this is kind of a situation where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. Romantasy is going to be more and more popular. I'm actually surprised that UK was so late on the train, because I was seeing Romantasy 3 to 5 years ago in our bookstores. Now, romance has always had a large section in North American bookstores. Maybe in the UK, things were more balanced, but in the US, in Canada, as far as I know, romance has always had a massive presence in a bookstore. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. And if you go to any secondhand bookstore or any secondhand, like bargain bin type store where they have a book section, what is the largest section with the most turnaround, where women are dumping books upon books in? What is the largest section? We all know what the largest section is. So it's not a surprise to me that romance will and has and will continue to have a major portion of a bookstore. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Yes, Miro. Miro gets a gold star. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to do a theory. Let's make a theory here. Theory. So the theory is going to address, why are stores stocking more romance and romantasy now than before? Okay, let's ask this. Chat, why do you think? I have a theory, but I want to see what everyone here thinks. Why is it goth lit is all trash? I mean, I love gothic literature. I'm not gonna lie. I would take a master's in gothic literature, but I was so over the book by then. I will say Frankenstein to me is a little like ugh, but yeah. Are you reading all her work? Who are you talking about, Leah? I think, am I looking at top chat or am I looking at live chat? Everyone switched to live chat. Okay. Mary, I'm not like the other girls. Shelley, yeah. Just like Party. Yes. Party is not like the other girls. She is not actually. Party keeps telling me that, she's this normal lady. She is not normal. She's absolutely 110% more intelligent, more intense, more authentic sometimes, most of the time. Are we talking about romance or romance? Good question. We're talking about like your average romance. You're not like other girls. Yes. Ben's gonna AFK. Good luck, Ben. Ditto for 3 to 5 years ago in the US. Yeah, see? Miro's seeing what I'm saying. Romantasy and fantasy, especially urban fantasy, has been a thing since the early... See, even Wooly know. Like, how are these men so derpy? You know what it tells me? If a man tells me that he's surprised when he went to the bookstore by how much romance books there are, do you know what that tells me? That tells me that he probably hasn't been in a bookstore for a hot minute. I'm like, Wooly knows this. How can you pretend to be surprised? Maybe the UK is different. Maybe the UK was holding on to some kind of thing where they were like, oh, we must keep up appearances. But I'm telling you, North America was they just went down that rabbit hole really fast. As someone who always tried to avoid romance in reading, romance has been buried like a tick in fantasy novels since at least the 70s. Shay's been tracking it. I think women have been reading it for decades. They were just hiding, disguised as fans of another genre by buying books written by authors writing for that disguised genre. That's a fair thing, yeah. Those romance novels with fantasy genre elements, romantic porn marketed to teens. I mean, the teens part is where the contention is at, I think. The last time I was in a Target, there was a surprising number of cooking books. Cooking books are also a big thing, yeah. Because who's buying a cooking book, Miro? Who's buying a cooking book? Do you think a man is buying a cooking book? I mean, probably, maybe you might be buying a cooking book, but I mean, like, generally speaking, who's buying a cooking book? Women are the dominant buying force. That's all I can think of. Okay. Women just buying more books. Okay. Number 2. Leo, have you read those books? I promise. Horn has been in fantasy since the 70s. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I adored half of Gothic Lit and the rest of it is popular for no reason. True. Women have been told men aren't okay for the goal, IRL. So, while women have always enjoyed romance, they now have an extra layer of fantasy because getting the man is now considered a fantasy. Interesting. Okay. So let's say women are seeking a fantasy or just fantasy. Romance and fantasy, or romance fantasy, or just fantasy, or just romance. But yes, I don't get along with normal women. You two are unhinged, and I love it. Yeah, Shay, you actually, Shay, if Emmy was in our Discord, let me just say, Emmy is also very similar to myself and Party. But yeah, there are women out there who are slightly unhinged, and we all love each other, right? Until we like hate each other. I think teens are just reading graphic novels and mangas now. Yeah. Isn't Romantasy just the Western version of Otome Games manga and for men harem games manga? I used to buy dozens of books a month when I got out of the army, but slowly I couldn't find anything of interest. It's probably been a while now for you, Wooly. Growing up, there's a lot of romance in the sword and sorcery genre. There's a reason why the hero gets the girl as a trope. Damsels were really in distress. Teens love sci-fi and fantasy, though, Leo. Yeah. I think the problem, Epic, with some of the older stuff is they were written by men, and we go back to this problem up here. I'm not saying that the male gaze is illegal, although at its worst, it is illegal. What I'm saying is that the male gaze will be... Okay, so let's say a man writes a shoddy romance by female standards. Women will still read it if they have nothing else to read. But as soon as a woman comes out with their own shit and they're giving women what they want, guess what they're going to do? They're going to switch from here. They're going to go down to here. And some guys will look back at those good old days and be like, well, women used to read us. Well, let me tell you why. Because they had no other choice. They actually didn't really 110% like it in terms of market choice. Now there's market choice. And guess what? You were voted off the island. Because, like I said, male gaze works for men, but it feels terrible at its worst. And even toward the worst end of that spectrum, it feels gross and weird. Like, I wouldn't enjoy it. And I'm considerably, like, laissez-faire about certain things. But it's not fun for a woman to read something that's poorly written by a man about something that literally feels like it's disempowering her. Harems are popular on Royal Road, but most romantic books seem to not include this. Well, you have to understand, Simp, there's a couple reasons why. Number one, women don't want to compete with other women, right? Women are constantly beating off other women from their men. They're not going to want to share. I would say, if there's a niche for women to enjoy a harem romance, that is a small and very tiny niche. That's a woman having some kind of low-key lesbian kink. Your average woman does not want to share with another woman. That is not a thing. In fact, it's considered in a lot of romances, it is heavily encouraged never to go into a woman cheating like the male that she goes with has to be single and unattached. He can be a widowed dad or a divorced dad, but he must be absolutely 110% single. There must be no sharing. There's reverse harem, though. We can ask a question like, why isn't reverse harems more interesting? Like, why aren't women going for reverse harem? And I honestly think biologically, women either evolved or, in my case, I believe created. Women were not created to actually find happiness from having a ton of men around her. She just wants the one. But there are some women, like myself, who wouldn't be averse to reading a well-done reverse harem. It's just, it's not everyone's. Okay, maybe hot take, though. Facebook and other social media, most face suddenly, okay. Social media helping women normalize interest in romance / romanticy. Okay. Love triangles equal harems. Yeah, love triangles are just a huge no. Chat, I need help. I'm running an D&D and for some reasons relevant to I need a pun brand for Build a Bear. Women are constantly beating off. The Wheel of Time, the main male character has 3 women. They cut this out of the TV show. Yeah. Yeah. And once again, it's about optics, right? Because once again, the Wheel of Time was not written to represent the book. It was not created to represent the author, and it was not created to appeal to men. It was created to appeal to women. Now, are there some women who would be open to having a general fantasy story where a man has 3 women? Absolutely. There are tons of women who would read a general fantasy novel not for that specific situation, but for the story. And in the story, there just so happens to be a man who has 3 ladies in his life. I actually read like the first 5 or 6 books of Wheel of Time, and then I noped out. But basically, the problem is that if you are going for a female audience with romance interests, you can't do that. That's not going to roll. That's not going to go up. I think it's a miss for me. Like, I think they should have stuck to the book and just did the book and appealed to a general audience. Instead, they thought that they would be politically correct and appeal to female audiences. And I think they have appealed to female audiences because I had a potential, I was in talks with a potential client and I did some sample work with them, who was a Wheel of Time enjoyer and decided they wanted to write a book. So there are women out there who I think genuinely like Rings. I happen to know someone who unironically enjoyed Rings of Power. Mind blowing, I know. But I think some shows, if they do it correctly, even if they're cannibalizing the original material, they will appeal to a certain kind of woman. But it's a shame because they could have appealed to way more people. They could have appealed to men and to women, but I bet there was a political correctness, DEI kind of bullshit going on, and they were like, oh, we can't have this guy with 3 women, right? If you want to understand how repulsive male romantic fantasy is for women, try reading a love triangle otome manga. If you're a normal man with healthy T levels, it will make your skin crawl. Yeah, exactly, Wooly. It's the same thing the other way, right? We can't go into a guy space and be like, oh, you have to enjoy this. This is going to be for you. It's absolutely unfair to bros. There are certain things that women enjoy that bros will like literally like, oh, right? Like it's just, it can't, some things cannot be shared. The problem is when you have a man who thinks he's going to write for women But he's still, unfortunately, just missing the mark. That's interesting to me. Oh no, my stream has fallen a minute behind, but I don't want to miss any of this fire right now. If love triangles are a big no, then why does every CW show have them? Good question, Jonathan. Once again, love triangles are okay, but the love triangle has to be extremely clear where it's going. There must be the tension must be quickly and swiftly resolved in many cases. So for example, women are fine with a love triangle, but the stuff that I've read where the love triangle is okay, let me show you the difference, okay? There are two kinds of love triangles. We're going to do called the realistic love triangle, and then we're going to call it the romance love triangle. Yes, that's right. Who would have believed it? Romance is not always realistic. Okay, so the realistic love triangle is there is a bro called John, short for Jonathan, who always hung out with Ray during high school. They are now grown up, and Ray has a thing for John, and he kinda likes her, but he's looking for spice. In comes Joyce. Party will get this joke. In comes Joyce, who is a single mom looking for a good, stable man. Now John has to choose between his old friend and let's say mysterious, well, not mysterious, but a new opportunity for adventure. Okay, so in this case, we have a guy who has a legitimate issue because both of these people are really nice. We have Ray, who's this really nice girl, probably knows him really well. She's probably the one he should be with. But then there's this new lady in. Maybe Joyce is a little bit hotter. I don't know. But, you know, she's a stable woman who's had some bad luck in the past, but she's looking for a man to start a new life with. Who's he going to go with? When you write this kind of realistic love triangle, this is going in a drama because you are going to feel for Ray and Joyce. You're going to feel for both of them because this is not about John and Ray or John and Joyce. This is about John and Ray and Joyce. And this is what a drama novel is. And women enjoy this, by the way. Women like this kind of thing. It makes them cry and they're like, oh, but if they want to have a fun, brainless gooning time, like Wooly playing a gotcha game. Okay, sorry, Wooly. I know you don't play because you're a goon. You're not gooning. But what I'm suggesting, though, is like there are trashy things out there that guys enjoy, okay? And girls do it too, all right? And so this is how the love triangle for a romance happens, okay? John and Ray have known each other forever, blah, 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 blah. Ray has always loved John, but he's oblivious. Then a new hot bitch, yes, that's right, close your children's ears, rolls into town. Peroxide gold digger out to fleece John's, and Ray has to stand up for herself and prove to the man she loves that she's the one. In this one, there's no rooting for the hot peroxide gold digger bitch blonde. Okay, like you're not rooting for Joyce in this situation. Do you see what I'm saying? The love triangle for the trashy love triangle romances, you can see it coming for the most part a mile off. There's no will he, won't he. I mean, there is a will he, won't he. Obviously, you got to have a little bit of tension. But like, that other girl is usually demonized, okay? Is usually demonized. She's going to lie. She's going to cheat. She's going to be scummy. She's going to be a hoe. She's going to try to entrap John. She's going to get like fake photos. She's a complete hoe. Okay, this is different from this up here. This here is humanizing everyone in the situation, and you're going to cry probably because you could have seen a road not traveled. Here, there's no question. There's no question. There's no like, oh, you know, the childhood friend always loses. Funny, Wooly, because I hope to write a romance where the childhood friend doesn't lose, but that's just me. Maybe I'm just being weird. Enemies to lovers and love triangles seem the most popular trope on BookTok. Yeah. I think it's the modern guy is probably either working longer hours or otherwise dedicating his free time into games, whereas women use their leisure time in an activity. That doesn't result in leveling or strategizing. That's true, RA. Yeah. 5 to 8 or 9 were really hard. I had to be forced to stick with it. Which one did I pin on Goodreads? All men don't look like Fabio. Also, love triangle is an initiation for the characters, like an immature phase before they grow up and find love with the one. Sometimes, but like love triangles are useful in a book. It's just that you can't. Oh, and here's the point I was going to make. Love triangle does not mean man is with another woman at the same time. That's like a threesome polyamory. And by the way, I happen to know that there are some niches where you can go and enjoy your polyamorous. But are these niche? Absolutely. So are there romances out there where 3 people get together and are happy at the end? Absolutely. But are they super niche? Yes. What is making big money? What is making big money? The single man meeting a single woman. At no point in time is the woman sitting back going, oh yeah, he's with another woman. I'm fine with that. MILF looking for nice stable man that's 6 foot tall, makes 6 digits, had 6 abs, and looks dreamy. Chieko describes shoujo hooks. Lol. Yeah. These are not niche in WoW RP at all. Smut hiding in fantasy game. So the polyamory stuff, like I said, once again, this is in terms of traditional publishing and self-publishing on Amazon. Threesome and polyamory is not as big a thing. It's crucial that the man is, and I was told by my ghostwriting employees to, when I write romances, to make sure to never have the guy in an on again, off again relationship with someone else other than, like, it had to be the FC and FC only. And I was talking to my mentor, and they were saying that when I write the book, particularly if you're a new writer, you should not rock the boat. You should just just get shit out and do like just normal stuff. And they told me that I should never have the partner, like any one of the partners, attached at all. They need to be single, and there should be no one else clogging up the picture because people don't like the uncertainty. Okay, so going back to here, why are stores stocking more romance and romantasy now than before? Why is Simp walking in right now and suddenly seeing more? So what I think is happening is that, first off, women were always buying tons of romance. Okay, women were always doing it. Okay, but romantasy and specifically and romance, I think, are taking up more space because women, it's where the money is. Okay, so if we go up here, my theory is it's where the money is currently. The combination of ongoing historical trends are combining with the Streisand effect and social media word of mouth to encourage the publishing and sale of specific novels / genres. And bookstores have to sell these to make money, period. Now we got to now ask, what led to this? And we've been talking about this all the time, so I'm not going to go once again into it super deep. But TLDR, I think, between political, DEI, or other social trends, certain literary genres have become unsellable, resulting in bookstores pivoting to interests that they can sell. Now, this is actually very harmful. It puts people like Herman out in the snow. It puts male authors that could have come in other times out in the snow with Herman. I think it's actually a very negative spiral, because as bookstores seek money, they're going to go with the easy route. And I hate to say it, romance is one of the last bastions where men can be men and women can be women. Even in romantasy, where it's obviously like ludicrous and silly, it's still better. Whereas if you go into general fiction, if you go into literary fiction, now you have to read this less than enjoyable book about a woman killing men and eating their eyeballs because #male gaze. Like, if you're an average wine drinking housewife lady who has a full-time job and doesn't have a lot of time, okay, you have to clean, you have to cook, you have to get your kids to and from school. You know, if you're married, your husband's helping, but there still is a huge burden on working women. And you're going to get home, and are you going to want to sit down and read about the struggles of a Vietnamese female worker in the 1700s? The answer is no. You're going to want to sit down and read something that's quick and fast, similar to how guys will read manga or light novels. And the reality is that literary fiction, which was always a struggle because they're the next classics, so to speak, are not going to sell well to begin with. But then on top of that, any women who might have been interested in trying out this book or these kinds of books are just going to disappear because a lot of those books have become not entertaining. They're not entertaining. They're boring. They're shitty. And they're boring. So what are they going to read instead? They're going to read Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover is absolute trash in many aspects, but at least she's fun to read for them. They have no taste. Also, that's another thing. The education has robbed a lot of people of taste, so they don't even know what something good is. They don't know. But thinking back to that one booktuber asking why TradPub doesn't do more sapphic romance, and I answered because it doesn't sell to their standards of profit. And I got chewed for the fact. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I think people need to understand that bookstores are just like video game development publishers, just like Steam, just like studios in video games. They want to make money. Mobile games want to make money. So what are mobile games doing? They're making gooning material for men because they want to make money off of men. And they make bright, flashy Candy Crush for women, right? And bookstores have decided, I'm going to sell self-help books, how-to books for the bros, and I'm going to sell self-help books and romance and romantasy for the chicks. And then we'll survive. Readers don't want to challenge themselves, so they read trash to not be disappointed by some book in another genre. Absolutely, Leo. Absolutely. So you're a bookstore. What are you going to do? You're going to stock maybe 1/3 of your bookstore with stuff that is what you consider to be fringe possibilities for people to buy, and 2/3 of it is going to be stuff that you know they want to buy, right? Why would you put on your bookshelf a no name that women aren't going to pick up? It's just really sad, because I think they're not giving women a chance to increase their taste, develop their taste, and it's not allowing men to have a voice at all either. So men are going to roll in and be like, hey, where's our stuff? We get like these 3 shelves over here, for our fantasy, and 4 shelves over here for our sci-fi, but there's nothing else. They gotta, like, what do you expect bookstores to do? Like, I don't know. I'm not saying what bookstores are doing is right, by the way. I'm not supporting this situation. I'm simply saying it absolutely makes sense. It makes sense. I'm gonna open up. If you hear crunching, it's because I'm finally getting to some stuff that I ordered. I checked the trending books in my local library. The Arabic section is mostly self-help books, 90%, while the English section is DEI, fantasy, and romance. Why do you think that is for you? Why do you think that's happening in your area of the world? Playing Elden Ring while Chieko throws truth bombs is strangely good comedy. Well, I'm glad that you're having fun. I'm really glad. I'm cheering myself up here, guys. I have a night of writing ahead of me. But let's see if we can pull up IRL photos. This is the longest shelf at my local Target. I'm seeing a lot of female stuff. Nicholas Sparks, Daniel Steele, Pucking Sweet, Pucked. Oh yes, there's a whole thing right now with sports and romance. Yeah, that's a thing too. I personally think it's gross. I would never read a sports romance. Romance. See, I'm telling you guys, Target, like, who's going to Target? Women. Oh, I love that Final Fantasy XIV cookbook. Let me know if it's any good. A World of Warcraft cookbook, a Downton Abbey cookbook. Yeah, Miro is buying cookbooks. How could I guess that, Miro? I don't know. I could guess that. I could see that coming. I would not be surprised. Miro does like steampunk. I assumed that he would be cooking. Don't ask me why I can see that connection. Herman on Discord is laughing at a good read review. Said, this includes descriptions of women that are very, very clearly from and for the male gaze, questionable interactions with female anatomy, cringe dialogue, or actions from female characters meant to appeal to the male gaze. You get the deal. So it would have been better if the female gaze was used. Well, once again, Herman, here's the problem, okay? Should we have segregated bookstores? That's a good question. Here's the reason why. Okay, you get a guy who writes a guy-based romance. Girls are going to find it icky. girls are going to find it icky. Because it goes back up to here, right? When it comes to dealing with the opposite sex, the male gaze often or sometimes disempowers the female. And by disempowering, I need to clarify this, makes her a doormat, makes her helpless, makes her an idiot, makes her like a child, or keeps her ignorant. Now, does that mean that I'm against... Everyone should know how I feel about Hinata from Naruto, or how certain Jane Austens were treated in recent adaptations. I am not saying we can't have introverted females. I'm not saying we can't have quiet-spoken females or more thoughtful and more meek females. I'm not saying that. What I'm suggesting is that how a man comes at a romance to a female perspective, the way they write it can feel disempowering to the female, because the female in the male brain is getting rescued. And that is true. That is absolutely happening in the female romance books as well. But in the female romance books, the opposite partner is always empowered alongside herself. She is able to make her decisions. She is able to have agency in her own life and mature and have a character. Unfortunately, when romance is poorly done in a male book, it comes off as grapey, honestly. Right? At best, they're enjoying the female form and the female is, not necessarily zesty. She doesn't have to be always extroverted and, in charge and at large, but the female has her own character, has her own character progression at best, right? At best. But at worst, when it's poorly written, poorly conceived, the woman is graped. The woman is graped. Okay? Like, it can get creepy. However, if we look at female gaze books, the female gaze in terms of the opposite sex always empowers the male, because the whole point of the book is that the male is wanted, right? But not wanted just because of his body. He's wanted because of his status. He's wanted because of his personality. Personality plays a huge role in female gaze romances. That's why there's a heavy focus when you're writing a romance for women. There's a heavy focus on the psychological development of the characters. That's why in female romances, you often will see male and then female points of views. You will have different points of view chapters, usually back and forth. Why is that? Because you want to see how both of them are doing psychologically. It's not just a one-way picture at the male. The male, air quote, the male, gets, air quote, a voice. Now, to guys reading the air quote male voice written by a female can be cringe. But at least the women are trying to have this empowered, albeit idealized, romanticized thing about the guys. At best, the women are showing the men to be these three-dimensional characters who have this progressive thing, but they remain their capabilities, right? They have their capabilities. At worst, I personally think women start to create false expectations around how men think or how men should think. And they can deceive themselves into an actual state where they are out of touch with reality, and these women will end up exploited because they are so out of touch with reality about how men think. They will end up choosing men poorly because they don't actually know how real men are thinking, because they're reading how real men think through the lens of another female, if that makes sense. So at its worst, like poorly written female gaze stuff is going to idealize the man to such a state, or is going to kind of cringeify the guy to a certain degree. But the guy is never made soy. The guy is never made, he's never helpless. He's never, well, he might be like emotionally damaged and needs to be healed by the woman, but like he's never physically helpless and unable to fight back. And that is fundamental. As soon as the male loses his power, the whole book loses power. Whereas if the female loses power in the male gaze book, everything continues, nothing to see here, keep moving on. And that's why there's some, that's why Herman, that's what they mean when they talk about disempowering. Yeah. Would you read a normal sport novel? No, Leo. I actually abhor sports. My favorite part of sports is soccer. When there's like a hot Asian guy on the field and he's kicking a ball around, and then I might perk up, but that's about it. I literally find sports to be generally extremely dull and not very entertaining. I'll sit there and I'll watch it with like my brother if he wants me. I have this one brother who loves soccer, and he would have it on the screen and I would watch it. But I would usually end up making fun of the managers and how they keep chewing gum and like guzzling stuff, or like wearing these like suits. Like different managers have like different vibes, you know what I mean? And then I would like kind of start rating the men physically. I'm watching sports for all the wrong reasons. Yeah. I like, seriously, I'm not a, I disappear during certain sports seasons. I'm just like, no. Women's volleyball is fire? I'm sure it is. Do you have a male author who writes really good women? I have Larry McMurtry, and that's it. Whoa, I rate the dudes too? Yeah. Once again, I don't write... I would not read a sports-based romance novel. That's just... that's weird. No. Would I write one? Yeah. For money, I would. But not... I would not read one. I guess I would have to read them for research, but I would never read them for fun. I think that would be horrific. I think that would give me brain cancer. Spunky. Yeah. But anyway, have I caught up on the Discord? Royal said, at least she acknowledged that she's probably not the audience for this type of book. I'm going to give that a heart, because I agree. The person who was criticizing it acknowledged she was not the target audience. And this is where I want to draw a line here. Right now, there are some women who are going after male entertainment, and they're trying to delete male gaze entertainment. I think they should leave it alone as long as it's not getting illegal. If it's not illegal in any way, shape, or form, then male gaze should keep trucking. And same thing for female gaze. As long as the women are not doing anything illegal, or not promoting illegal activity, they should keep trucking. I don't like it when women try to cancel the male gaze stuff just because they don't like it. But I do want to explain that there's a reason why the men writing romance should not be surprised if they get trashed by women. Because guess where their romances are going to show up in a bookstore? They're going to show up in the romance section. So a woman's going to pick it up and is going to think it's for her, and then they're going to get they're going to be horrified, and it would be like Wooly picking up an Otome game and then just getting, cringed out, right? So I think women going and shitting on that male writer and being like, oh no, I don't like it. They don't like it. That's probably 100% true, but they should contextualize their criticism within the fact that they are not the audience, so they shouldn't. It would be like if someone showed up at a vegan convention and then complained that there's no, meat hamburgers there, or a vegan showing up at a meat hamburger convention and complaining that there's no vegan burgers there. Like, it's not for you. Sit down, be quiet. But trying to cancel someone simply because they wrote something that's not written for you, I think that's horrible. And people shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be they need to use, this is why I promote objective analysis, okay? A woman comes in and shits on a book she doesn't like. Turns out the book wasn't written for her. She should have taken that into account. That's why objective analysis is necessary. You have to take into account who is the book written for and then assess the book by that standard. Does the book meet the standards of the genre and the audience that it is attempting to reach? And that's how you adequately research and analyze a book. You cannot go in and literally judge a book simply by your perspective. That is unfair to the book. You are maybe trashing what is actually a really great book. It's not written for you. And that's where I have a little bit of an issue. Like, you gotta... Women need to calm down a little. On the other hand, maybe bookstores need to make a shelf for male-focused romances. So romances written by and for men, or by the very few women who might be able to write for a male gaze. But yeah, wasn't a female author in Australia being investigated because her novel was like a pedo 101 manual to seduce minors? I have no knowledge of that. No idea. But that's creepy. That's really creepy. Most women go for bros who are older than them. I don't know how niche or how popular that would actually be. Like, was she writing this manual for men, or was she writing this manual for other ladies? I don't know. I have no knowledge of this situation. Okay, MB in Discord said, this is the English trending section at my local library. The Wedding People, Water Moon, a novel, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Shatter Me, Heartless. So some romance, some thrillers, psychological thrillers, typical. Water Moon, don't know that. It's Penguin though, so that's probably litfic. Wedding People, probably litfic. Or drama. The other side of the aisle looks more interesting. Okay. Oh, how long is this? I'm just checking out videos, trying to find a short one. I don't want to... yeah. Trying to find like a shorter one.
These are a...
Let's see. 13 minutes. I think we just found what we are going to react to tonight. I think we found it. It will follow nicely in from what we were just talking about. Just checking in. So before we kind of switch over to the React video, which we're going to react to in a second, how's everyone in here today? Who is in here today? I know we have some people who floated in. We had Herman come in. Welcome in, Herman. Sorry for the late welcome. Miro is tired. Busy day with your dad. I'm lurking in the background, says Day in Game. What are you up to? Did your D&D session go well? Wooly had a 2-day weekend. Yay, Wooly! What did you do with your 2-day weekend, Wooly? What did you end up doing? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Miro. Emmy is lurking while she dashes. I hope dashing is going well and you're getting lots of tips. Oh. Excuse me. I'm just checking this. That's hilarious and sad and funny at the same time. I shouldn't be laughing. Do you know how people think they know what they're doing and they clearly don't know what they're doing? That's what's happened. Jonathan is lurking and working. Oh, wow. Everyone's so... Dying Game is doing power wash. Your party is a bit slow at times? Uh-oh. Oh. Emmy is headed home. Yay! Leo's day was crazy? Oh. Oh, like in a good way, Leo, or a bad way? Anakin's playing Mafia? Anakin, is Mafia a game? Oh, party is playing Power Wash with a weirdo. Oh, no. How did that happen? A good way. Oh, that's good. You should share about it in general chat, Leo. Anakin, what is Mafia? What does that mean? Is that a video game? Mafia game, definitive edition. Okay, I need to read up about this before we go in. Mafia game, definitive edition. Has anyone here played the Mafia game? Okay, let's see what this is. Images. I guess it's on the PS4. Oh, is it on Steam now? Okay. I've never heard of this game. It's an action adventure. Open world. Okay. It was built from the ground up with new assets and an expanded story. Oh. Single player campaign. Are you like shooting? Okay, outside the main story mode, there's a free ride mode, allowing to explore the city at their own leisure. Okay. The games include collectibles. Is this an Ubisoft? What is this? 2K. Okay, never mind. All right. Based. Okay, so you're collecting. You're doing like fun little activities, I guess. And it has a story. Wow, my brother is reading a story in a video game. Are you reading or are you skipping scenes, Anakin? You better not be, or I'm coming down there and slapping you. Now, chat, I need to tell you that Anakin is a sensitive soul. He played Red Dead Redemption 2 and he was crushed. He was, right? Do you remember I came in and you were sitting in your bed and you were just like, because Anakin was staying with me and he was kind of sleeping in the dining room of our apartment, and you were like, I'm like so sad because he was like crushed by Red Dead Redemption 2, I think. I was a boring, responsible adult. Oh, and cleaned my flat for the first day. Then I read through 3 chapters of PGR and had my metaphorical heart broken. Oh, can't wait to see if my heart will get broken. I will one day play the game. How can I say this, Wooly? I want to reach the first milestone for the book that I'm writing. And then, like, if I can achieve that, I feel like I've done a pretty good job. And then I'll see about carving out time for PGR. I kind of want to see if I can finish the the write-a-thon, so we'll see. I have, says the in-game. I played 1, 2, and 3. Excited for the new one coming out. Ooh. Anakin, did you know that there's a new one? It sounds like there's a new one coming out. It's like GTA, but with more cutscenes. Oh. I can see why Shaper's Ripples is so contentious. Oh. Wooly, are you unhappy with it, or are you just like sad but in like a good way? Like, is your heart broken insofar as like how I felt when Loki died, but I felt like it was a good thing? Or, but even though it wasn't what I necessarily wanted for that character, but I knew it was a good way, it was like a good ending? Or is your heart broken because the story just went to shit? I don't see Wooly as getting heartbroken because a story went to shit. I feel like Wooly would just kind of be like, and then just shrug the story off and like jettison the story from his life like a broken TV out a window. Sad in a bad way. I'm impressed the writers pulled it off. The chapter name is badly translated. In Chinese, it's Metamorphosis. Sad in a bad way. Sad in a bad way? Wait a minute. Sorry, chat. All right. hopefully Wooly will be able to answer there. Oh, the story forces you to leave everyone you grow attached to behind. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, that can be sad. Yep. That's kind of like how I felt. Emmy was there the day when we went to Thor the Dark World, and in the middle of Thor the Dark World, spoiler alert, Loki dies. And I was crushed. But it felt right. It was like, this is a good way for him to go, dying to protect his brother. And it felt correct. It felt like, if he's going to go, why not this way? And then Thor the Dark World decided to be like completely idiotic. And basically, actually, in the end, Loki did the same thing again at a later date. So anyway, TLDR, sometimes it's important to say goodbye to people in order to like move ahead with the story. The problem is how permanent is that goodbye? Like, are they all dead? Or is it like you've gone somewhere and you have to get your way back? I'm not going to talk about Final Fantasy XIV because that would be spoilery, but yeah, okay, very interesting. What makes it worse? All the characters you no longer have in the story are still in the game. Oh, yes. Well, Wooly, that's the issue with gacha gaming, isn't it, right? I think in a novel, that would be so powerful. I think, Wooly, what is so powerful is that in a book, this move, in a book series, Wooly, this move that PGR did would absolutely 110% work, right? It would be very good and corrective for a story. It would even work in an MMO because you could just not have those assets in the game anymore, right? You could maybe have your little minion that represents them, but like you wouldn't see, like, for example, you know what? Diane Game is in chat, so we won't do Final Fantasy 14. But let's just say that, like, if a character dies and you have their minion in Final Fantasy 14, it's kind of like, oh, that's sad. We miss them. Boo, wah, But like in a gacha game, you actually have to physically use them all the time. So that's rough. PGR to me is an example of a game that is literally held back by the genre that it is entrapped in. And that will be my thesis right now about PGR. Like, I have no beef with PGR. It's just, I think it's the gacha aspect of it is what's going to kill people, because ultimately, how are you going to enjoy your gacha game if you can't see that character and do stuff with him? As far as I can tell, it's permanent. There's no going back. And it fits with the side theme of the game story memory. Oh my lord. Could you imagine if I actually get emotionally attached to Watanabe and Watanabe ends up like dead or gone? I could see people rage quitting. I mean, there were some people who couldn't cope with certain people dying in 14. And 14 doesn't even have a gacha aspect where you see the characters over and over again. Yeah, that's gross, but interesting. Very interesting. We have to give PGR props for having balls. And Wooly, of course, we will talk about this in the future in Discord in more detail. I will try to catch up. I really do have to get this writing done. I want to see if I can get a bit further in the book. I don't want to give up on myself and my book quite yet. So yeah. So we're gonna just, yeah, we're gonna, wait 1 second. There's something weird going on here. Excuse me. Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, so since we are talking about women writing and romances, we are going to watch a video called 8 Ways Your Writing Reveals That You Don't Understand Women. Now we're going to find out if I understand women, because that is a legitimate question. Do we understand women? What does this person think we understand women? And is this a guy? It looks like this is a man saying this. Okay, the person who requested this was Enrakin. Is Enrakin here today? No. But we will still... Wait a minute. Oh man, we have such a backlog of videos. Holy shit, dude. You know what? We're not going to look at them. We're going to tackle this mountain one mountain at a time. Okay. So there are apparently 8 ways that our writing reveals that we don't understand women. We're going to watch it and we're going to see what they say. And then we're going to figure out how well are we writing women for those of us who write. Nah, the PGR writers pulled it off brilliantly. It's been a while since fiction has had a long-lasting effect on me. I'm glad that it was pulled off brilliantly for you, Willie. I will check it myself and see it when I get there. Honestly, killing off people, ballsy, Willie, ballsy. Or maybe not killing off. Like, I mean, there was wasn't there a Doctor Who doctor that kind of like got stuck in a side universe or something? But anyway, I think it's very ballsy when it's done correctly. Chico 2025. We're going to tackle this mountain one mountain at a time. Yeah. Did I just say that? Oh, wow. Okay, let's keep going.
Ways that male authors get female characters completely wrong. And these are 8 ways that male authors get female characters completely wrong, and also some practical things that you can do to solve these problems. Now, men, you should watch this so you don't get posterized on Reddit for writing women terribly. And then women, you probably want to watch this just to see whether you agree with me or not, but I do think there is, say, 1 or 2 problems that you might fall into as well. So we're going to go over 8 common mistakes, and the very last 2 are probably the most important ones. Let's start with number 1. Making women incapable. So Reese Witherspoon runs one of the biggest book clubs in the world, Reese's Book Club, and she argues that one of her least favorite lines of dialogue from female characters is, "What do we do now?" What this does is it makes your female characters very passive. Now, is it...
Wow, that's an extreme take. What do we do now, chat? Okay, here's the thing. I don't think necessarily that phrase should be somehow earmarked as a problem, because I think it's very human for anyone to say, what should we do next? However, I was reading romances, which have no women in it, right? And I remember there was one, I'm going to talk about one specifically, but there were a few where the twink in the relationship, the uke, was extremely helpless to such an irritating degree. At one point, they needed help getting their sweater put on, their cardigan. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. There was a situation where an uke struggled to put on garb for outdoors and had to be reminded. Now, I'm a person who has to be reminded. Party and my parents are always reminding me about the weather because my curtains are almost always pulled closed. I don't look out windows. I don't know what the weather is on any given day. It has the benefit of me being completely surprised when I do look out the window and then I'm like, oh, it's a nice day today. oh, it's a terrible day today. But it's like, I actually read books where the uke, the male who was receiving the action, so to speak, the twink of the relationship, aka the representative female of the relationship. I just need to make that clear because this was written by women for women. This is not actually about gay men doing gay things. I mean, it's gay men doing gay things, but it's actually for women. TLDR, these twinks actually represent women, and they are sometimes so derpy and helpless. They need help getting their coats on and their sweaters on, and they're like, and they're extremely airheaded. Now, am I airheaded? Yes. Do I sometimes need to be reminded to do things and eat and drink and open my window and, take care of myself? Absolutely. I'm actually one of those people. But that's because I'm making decisions in other areas of my life and I get distracted. There's always someone in the group who asks this, but it has to have impetus. And it should always either be the same character or it should be different characters throughout. Yeah. As if WAM and IRL don't have a C on, someone can take care of X. I just threw up in my mouth a little. That's nauseating. Yeah. I remember just being like really annoyed because this person was way too helpless. Let's just say that. Way too helpless. And I'm like, I know that there are some very flamboyant men out there and some very helpless women out there. And there's nothing wrong in writing it, but I want to see a character progression where they grow into agency and grow into making their, learning how to make decisions. And in some of these books, that change did not happen. They continued to be that way. It was considered to be a charming trait. And I was like, what is wrong here? This is weird. This is absolutely weird. Once again, having a character progression where someone's completely helpless and incapable of taking care of themselves, learning to take care of themselves, or someone who's like fish out of water syndrome. Fish out of water syndrome's fine. Oh no, I'm on an alien planet. I don't know anything. I need to keep asking questions until I figure out. I think you're stupid if you don't ask questions. Anyone who's afraid of asking questions clearly hasn't lived in a country where they don't understand the main language and don't know what's going on. You have not gotten into a taxi with someone that you can't communicate with. There are times in your life where you're going to have to ask questions and get help. So, I don't want to demonize incapability, because incapability is very interesting to navigate when you are using it as a way to progress a character. But if it's the status quo and it's considered endearing, outside of a comedic situation, I think it's gross. As helpless person as a child, if an adult is engaging in romance as that and staying there, yeah.
The biggest problem in the world if this happens once? Well, I mean, no, but what if most of your female characters do it? Or what if it happens across multiple books? Now, a good test to see whether you're making this mistake in your fiction is trying the Toriel test, which is from Lord of the Rings, specifically from The Hobbit. And this test simply asks, do you have a female character who is good at her job? Evangeline Lilly plays the woodland elf Toriel in the movies, and she is leader of the Mirkwood Guards, and she is a very, very, very capable fighter. Now, obviously, this isn't canonical Tolkien, it wasn't in the books, but they added it for the movie because they needed a strong feminine character. But I think this test is very useful, because if you don't have at least a single female character who's good at her job, you're probably tending towards making your female characters incapable. A second mistake a lot of male writers make about women is just a
That's a weird. Okay, all right. I'm going to say some things people are not going to like. Okay. I actually don't hate the Hobbit films. And I actually don't hate Evangeline Lilly, the actress. And I didn't mind Tauriel as a character in the movie. If we look at Tauriel as what does she do in the films, she's not the worst. Out of Miss Marvel, Acolyte, Rings of Power, Galadriel, like if we are looking at the full spectrum of sanity to insanity, Tauriel is not the worst offender. But is she the woman that you want to choose to talk about when it comes to female agency? And I just don't know if that's actually what you want to choose. Like, out of all of the books and films that we like, Yennefer comes to mind. I don't know. Yennefer seemed to me, both books and TV show, seemed to me a fairly capable woman who had a lot of agency, and also is actually a really great example of when a woman makes a really terrible mistake and has to live with it. They did not need Tauriel. Well, no, that's why I'm like, why did he choose Tauriel? Helplessness in some areas is endearing for both men and women. Well, I mean, if a man doesn't need a woman, and if a woman doesn't need a man, what's the point, right, Karn? So I think this guy is correct. Okay, I think he's absolutely correct. He comes out of the gate saying we can't demonize asking for help or wondering what we're doing. Okay, I agree with him there. He also makes a good point that some people, when they write certain books, make certain characters extremely helpless, but it's not done in a correct way. And I think that is a problem. Is it a constant literary issue where women are incapable? I don't actually know how ubiquitous that is. I could see back in the day, several decades ago, where you had those old novels where you had the damsels in distress being saved. But like, we're not in that. How can I say this? There's too much one way and too much the other way. To have no books with women who are incapable is horrible and stupid, because it takes away the potential to explore incapability within women. You could write a great story about an incapable woman becoming capable. So it's how you're handling the incapability. Same thing with a man, an incapable man versus a capable man. It's how are you dealing with capability? How are you dealing with vulnerability and not knowing what to do and things like that? There are two famous examples that I have. Lord Peter Wimsey and I believe it was Hercule Poirot. Both mystery detectives, both strong males figures in mystery novels. Both of them struggled with a moral dilemma during their mystery detecting career. And in the case of Lord Peter Wimsey, he basically had a minor emotional meltdown. Hercule Poirot had to go away and think. And essentially, I think how it's depicted and what is the point of that moment, or what is the point of that incapability, is the question we got to ask. Using Tauriel as an example, however, is Book Fox's mistake. I would not have used Tauriel. There are so many other women who are equally even better, actually, I would say better examples of agential, capable women. Not saying Tariel isn't capable. I actually think she is a capable woman, but why her? Like, why are we talking of all the books of all the films that we're talking about? And once again, I am not one of those like huge Hobbit haters. But even I'm going like, what? Why? What? Keep watching. Okay.
Characters incapable. A second mistake a lot of male writers make about women is just a basic ignorance of the physical. So on social media, I saw someone complaining about a book they'd recently read. And in it, a female character is washing someone else's blood out of their own clothing. And the omniscient narrator says, oh, she had never washed blood out of her clothing before. I'm guessing that author has never lived with a woman before, or is maybe even aware that women have periods. I find that male authors are often ignorant about makeup as well. The mascara never smears, the lipstick never comes off, and they never take time to actually apply makeup. In the book Silence of the Lambs, when Clarice is preparing to meet Dr. Lecter, she worries that she looks too young. So what that means is obviously she would be wearing makeup in an attempt to appear older, right? But she says right before she meets him, she goes in the bathroom, this is in the books by the way, and splashes a whole bunch of water on her face, which she wouldn't do if she had put on a lot of makeup. And the third thing is just general ignorance about the body. There's this Australian writer named Michael Robottom, and he wrote a book called When You Are Mine. And here is a quote that you will not believe from that book. I found myself wondering whether my ovaries had made a decision for me. They sometimes jiggle when I'm around a man I fancy.
Okay, Shay is back. Shay is back. Party is in here. I don't know if R.A. Morley is in here, but we got some women in here. Women, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know about my ovaries. My ovaries are somewhere in my body. They do their thing every month. Very regular. Jiggle. The only time that a woman feels her ovaries is when the ovaries have cysts on them, or there's like endometriosis around the ovaries, or there's a problem with the ovaries. Wow. I mean, he's probably just a terrible writer. He was probably trying to go for a cheeky metaphor. It flopped. This is bad writing. Okay? This is bad writing. This is a bad metaphor. She should... Even I know that you don't do this. However, I will say this. There are some women as well who can't write women well because they assume that women all have the same issue. So, for example, some women like to dramatize periods. And so they like to go with the my period is horrible woman. And that's all that they write. That's all that the women that they might be writing will have. Whereas like there are tons of women who might barely have a period. So TLDR, I think even women can make a mistake by generalizing female experiences. But when a guy makes assumptions about how a woman's body moves or feels, if they haven't taken that time, like the makeup thing, that can be like women generally will not splash water on their face. That might be a man thing, but if you have makeup on your face, especially during a certain time period with not a lot of, even waterproof makeup can sometimes smear. You're gonna want to think about the logic. To me, though, that's not always just an author problem. That's also, to me, an editor problem. Your editor should be catching these kinds of things and calling you out. So maybe these authors didn't want to listen to their editor and fought with the editor and kept it in. I don't know. I would say that somebody should have questioned this somewhere. There should have been a questioning. Someone Like, how did this get out? I don't know. The only time my ovaries jiggled was when the doctor had to deal with my organs during my C-section. That was ear cancer. Turns out one of mine is disconnected and that was cystic, and I only have half a uterus. Don't ask me how they're supposed to feel. Shay, the question is, do they jiggle when you see a hot man? I don't think it's meant literally. It's like saying you felt it in your heart. This is the stupidest metaphor, MB. If you come to me and you try to sell me this, I will literally call you stupid to your... No, this is stupid. It's so bad. Oh my Lord. It is so bad. Oh, this line is worse, might be worse than 50 Shades of Grey. Herman, our ovaries cannot jiggle. You know this, right? I think Herman was joking, Emmy. Emmy, I'm hoping Herman, tell us you were joking, right? You were joking. I think he was joking. Men dunk their head in a bowl of ice cold water. Yeah, I would dunk my head in a bowl of ice cold water, Jonathan, if I felt the need to. Because guess what? I don't wear makeup. But if you have a woman wearing makeup, she's not going to splash her face with water. Unless she's No, most women won't. Herman was joking. I am married after all. Yes. Yeah. Herman is based. He knows what he's about. He has an actual lady in his life. A long-term lady, as far as I understand. Maybe he's writing for men. I'm sure men don't mind making women's ovaries jingle. No one cared about the fact that Tauriel was there. They cared about the awful romance. Yeah, the awful romance. The romance was where the issue really was. But still, that was a weird character. Like, once again, I am not a Hobbit hater. I didn't care so much about Tauriel. I'm saying having Tauriel here as an example is wild. He should have chosen like Yennefer, for example, or any other woman in almost any other book. Anyway, ignorance of physical. I think he's pretty solid on this point. But you know what? I'm going to turn this around on lady writers. I think that there are lady writers who, when writing romance, may be not as realistic as they could be about how male physiology works. Maybe. But then, on the other hand, it is fantasy, and I kind of put female fantasies about how dicks work up there with men, the way men imagine booba sits on the body, because the amount of men who talk about women a certain way online, and then you see the jiggle physics and how the breasts are placed on the body, on the gacha character, and the lack of support that those breasts have. I think that's where I kind of like, I'm like, that's the fantasy aspect. Like, that's not reality. That's not how boobs hang on the body. So that's fantasy. And then I think women have their fantasy about how dicks work. So that's where I'm kind of like, as long as we all know it's fantasy, it is what it is. It's when you're trying to write serious fiction and you're a woman and you're writing about male physiology, you better get serious, right? Like, if you're writing serious fiction, your understanding of male and female physiology should be serious. But if you're writing fantasy, whether it's a gacha game or whether it's a romance novel, I think all bets are off and you can just go crazy. To defend men just a little, I've known women who talk about their ovaries this way, probably not realizing men will take it literally. Yeah, once again, women also don't know sometimes how to write about women because they assume things or they talk about things in weird ways. I support them. His balls jiggled when he saw her. Did they jiggle or did they tighten? Could this have been a joke and a humorless woman are the ones taking it seriously? I wonder. It could be. It could be a joke. Women in the novels. Are we finished round 7? I was too tired to continue. Me. After we finished round 7. Is it okay to understand most women are weaker than the average male teenager? Yeah. Yes, extra long or large. What I really appreciate, Wooly, is how you qualified certain parts of your statement. And how can I say this, Wooly? When I play PGR and I see tiny little, what's her face? Nanami, who I kind of still hate. And when you see these tiny little skinny, small, short, weak-looking female characters who are actually in android bodies running around, part of you is like, how is this working? And then you're like, it's an android. Oh, okay. So you just kind of roll with it. Why is there jiggle physics on this android? On this military-grade android? Just let the men have their boopa. Okay? And just let the women have their 3-round. I will say a lot of romances I've read in the past 2 to 3 years for research purposes, and some stuff because I just wanted to, were very realistic about male abilities. I will say, overall, generally realistic. But there were things here and there where I was like, I don't know about that. They're cyborgs, so it's okay. Sweat face. Yeah, exactly. We gotta let the fantasy be. It's when you're writing serious literature, lit fic, general fic, I think you need to know male and female physiology. Fembots, yeah. Extra long or large male naughty bits need extra time and care to fully engage. Yeah, Herman. But once again, if it's fantasy, and we all know it's fantasy, both sides of the aisle, I think we should just ignore it and keep trucking. It's when you're writing general fiction, serious literary fiction, or maybe even like some fantasy and sci-fi, you gotta be careful that your guys, like for example, let's say you're writing a standard human in a battle and he's got plate armor on. Realistically, even if he's a high endurance, hyper athletic bro, he's still not going to last forever because plate armor is heavy. Like there's going to be exhaustion. Like you have to mention the exhaustion and maybe at some points have them stripping off parts of their armor in order to continue fighting, because like there's a physical limit even to the most bro of men. Like men can't keep fighting forever. Like there's it's like reading the historical accounts of how the French people died in the Battle of Agincourt and how they were literally smothered in mud. As they sunk in the mud with their plate armor on, they suffocated in the mud and died. So I think we need to be, if you're writing something serious, and especially if you're writing like a dark fantasy or something fairly serious, I think you need to get your physiology down. Night, everyone. Night everyone. Good night, Emmy. Even without armor, combat is exhausting. Yes. Yeah. So. We got to think about physiology, both sides.
I'm around a man I fancy. Honestly, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I guess I'm going to laugh, but woo. Ovaries do not become aroused by the opposite sex. Like that's just not a thing. Okay, for the next mistake, let's consider number 3, attractiveness as the sole measure. So there can be a tendency in a lot of books, both written by men and written by women, to associate beauty with goodness. So, and what this looks like is the main character, the hero, is always extremely good looking, while the villain is always ugly and a hag. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that beauty is not associated with moral goodness. There's no correlation. So just an example of this. so you know I'm not making it up, is in Rick Riordan's The Lightning Thief. He often describes the antagonists as being ugly and fat, like the minor antagonist Clarice, who is unattractive and overweight. And on the other hand, his female heroines are always exceptionally beautiful, like Annabeth Chase. And I do think that sometimes female authors can make this mistake as well when they write tropes like the smart but ugly sister versus the beautiful but dumb sister. Or sometimes a sneaky way to prioritize beauty above all else is when you describe a certain character as being past their prime, like, oh, this character used to be beautiful 10 or 20 years ago. I don't think that's a good way to describe someone. What you're really saying is the most important part about this female character is their sex appeal, and guess what? They don't have it anymore. However, if I'm wrong about this, you can roast me in the comments. I am fine with having a debate on this. Let's go. And
Okay. I think the discussion about beauty is a tough one. I'm going to shelf that for another day when I have more time. But my general stance is that I think it goes back to the fantasy thing. I have always had the stance that we should have standards, but then we should keep ourselves grounded. Beauty doesn't exist for us to go around and judge everyone. And I know some people in chat will judge everyone by their physical stuff. I'm not one of those kinds of people, actually. But I do know that it's human and it's fairly normal. And there may be some biological reasons why. There are biological reasons why humans prioritize certain things. And I think beauty is one of those ways where we may be created or evolved to prioritize symmetry and certain shapes over others. And this has to do, I think, with perpetuation of species. It has to do with attraction. On a fundamental level, I don't think we can change it for the most part. Some of us can ignore it because honestly, you can have a really handsome man like Paul Bernardo who ends up doing something incredibly terrible with a chainsaw to somebody. You can have very handsome people do really shady things. And I remember in Lord of the Rings, there is a moment in the books where they are questioning whether Strider should be trusted. And Frodo says something to the effect that the enemy would appear fairer but feel fouler. And so the concept was that Strider, from a certain perspective, was extremely not comely, not very dressed up really nicely, wasn't necessarily, going for the attractive metal. He was someone who had been rolling around in the wilderness for quite some time. And there is a discussion actually in Lord of the Rings where Frodo and Sam, I believe, discuss how they can trust someone who looks so raggedy and unattractive to a certain degree. And there is this whole thing of not all those who wander are lost, etc., etc. So, and we have, for example, warnings, I believe, in scripture talking about how the enemy will, like Satan, will appear as an angel of light. So beauty has to be, we equate beauty with goodness, but on a practical everyday level, we have to understand that beauty in a fallen world, in an imperfect world, if you're a Christian, this is how you talk, but beauty in an imperfect world, whether you believe in God or not, it's immaterial. You have to agree that the world is not perfect. Beauty can hide character ugliness. So although on a practical level, We can understand that beauty is not the be all and end all and cannot determine the value of a person. To shrug off beauty as being an immaterial standard is hard coping. Because I think beauty still speaks to us on a level that is immutable. We can't change this. And to try to hand wave it away is silly. Now, as someone who is very plain myself, but is incredibly, you know, I feel like I have gifts in certain areas and I have things that I can offer a person. I definitely struggled with feeling good enough on a physical level because I felt that even if I brushed my hair and showered and put on nice clothes and went outside, I would never be more than a 4 or a 5 in my estimation. Like, even if I, you know, like got super fit, I will never look good as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, Party will disagree with me. She'll be like, no, you look really nice. No. I think I drew a terrible lottery genetically. I don't have a bad face. I'm so normal, guys. Like I'm a hyper normal girl. Maybe one day you guys will see my face and you'll see what I'm saying. Like no one notices me except homeless people and homeless men, men in wheelchairs with missing limbs. But anyway, TLDR, I'm one of those people who has been passed over, I guess, in the race for beauty to a certain degree. Like in the race for beauty, I'm not a winner. But I still recognize that beauty is part of how our brains process things. And I think to pretend that it doesn't exist or pretend that it shouldn't exist is a bad idea. If you made an effort. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Fairly realistic battles in heavy armor. Almost every Final Fantasy villain is beautiful. I wonder why. FF doesn't really do ugly. If beauty doesn't mean, excuse me, FF doesn't really do ugly, I will have you know that it does, but usually it's for comedic effect. But there is one guy, actually. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta think about here. Oh yeah, here we go. I know of a villain. There's actually a few villains in Final Fantasy XIV who are ugly. But this one definitely comes to mind. Do you guys remember him? Grin Watt? And there was also the bro from Wurlet, I think, was pretty gross. But this guy was pretty fugly. And he was a villain. Valens, Vothri. But Vothri got a glow up. And Vothri's glow up was on purpose. I loved that glow up. That glow up was used for a purpose in Shadowbringers. Yeah. Usually villains in FF go from beautiful to monstrous, but Vothri goes from monstrous to beautiful. I think they're saying something in that. Valens, yeah. God milk, yeah. Anyway, TLDR, I think beauty, we should never, I don't think discounting beauty is a good response to this. I think women and men both want to be with beautiful people and they want to be beautiful. I just don't think it's a good idea to hand wave away beauty like that. I'm trying to think. Now, Hunchback of Notre Dame is about a man who is physically deformed and his soul is more beautiful than all of the people around him who are wealthier and more attractive. There's that one. Trying to think. I remember in Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, Mary is described as being relatively plain looking. But it is revealed that her spirit, her attitude has soured her to such a degree that she just looks ugly and terrible. But over time, she actually turns into a little girl that is, yeah. TLDR count 3. Beauty should be an aspiration for all. Absolutely, Karen. I don't think, if I took care of myself, I don't think I would go above a 5 or a 6. I'm not kidding. Because in terms of universal standards of beauty, I don't think I have what it takes. But I should be as beautiful as I can be. And that is what we should be attempting to achieve. I think throwing out beauty as a concept is a mistake. I would also like to say Percy Jackson is also mythological. So for me, having more mythological beauty, kind of beauty, good, ugly, bad, feels more archetypal. It's kind of like a physical, metaphorical language to let you know who is what. Kind of like in anime, how you know the bad guy is the bad guy because they usually have cooler colors or extremely red or aggressive colors. Same thing. So in anime, everyone has normal hair except for the hero who has some bright blue or orange or purple hair or some streak in their hair to make them stand out. It's like a physical, graphical language to signal to the viewers who is who at a glance. It's like a shorthand for moral standards. Is it a bit lazy? Perhaps, but I think in mythological stories, I think there's a power in that, and to ignore it, I think is not great.
In general, I'd say that film and TV has exacerbated this problem. Most shows, everyone is just absolutely gorgeous, which is why it's really refreshing when you see a character who looks just normal. In the show The Perfect Couple, starring Nicole Kidman, there is a detective in that show. She is played by Donna Lim Champlin, and she is just very normal looking. She's decidedly not pretty. She definitely wasn't cast for her looks, but she looks like the type of actress who would actually be a small town.
I'm trying to think where I fit in relation to this lady here. I think we're in the same kind of category. I think.
Town detective. And guess what? She is an absolutely fantastic actress, probably my favorite character in the whole show. And it's just refreshing to see a female lead that isn't dependent upon her beauty to carry her. The next mistake is crucial to avoid.
Okay. If anyone is interested in learning about beauty and how women view beauty, how people view beauty, I highly recommend looking up Aidan Paladin. Aidan Paladin did a really great sociological study on beauty and girl bosses. And as FYI, beauty covers a multitude of sins. So you can be a bitch and you can be beautiful, but you can't be a bitch and be ugly. Essentially, TLDR. Everyone says that. Everyone apparently agrees. Apparently, according to studies. So, yeah. A person can be very beautiful just by being elegant and dressing well. No, Karn. because I've objectively seen really ugly girls that actually make me look good. She sounded cool. She's been on EFAP. Yeah. Aiden Paladin is solid. I'm getting lag on my end of the stream. I don't know about anyone else. Oh, I'm sorry, Miro. I met someone in university, Karn, who was objectively not good looking. And the only reason why I noticed that she didn't look good is she sat in front of me. Okay. This person sat in front of me. She sat in front of me. And she didn't come to class often. And then when she would come to class, she would sit and ask people for their notes. So what actually drew my attention to her was her behavior. And then I started looking closer at her, and I realized that I was literally looking at a walking human pig. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Pig. She was a literal pig. So she was porky to an extreme. And, you know, some girls are overweight. You know, I'm overweight. But I don't go around wearing backless shirts that are made out of flimsy cotton. So when you wear flimsy cotton and you have rolls of fat, how can I say this? The fabric catches in your rolls of fat. And if you have no back on your shirt, the straps are going to catch on your flesh. She sat in front of me in a hot pantsuit. Now, you might be going, what is a hot pantsuit? Okay, so here's another thing, okay? There are a few things that I can't handle. A hot pantsuit is one of them. So a hot pantsuit is usually an extremely short. Kind of like this. Okay. I'm going to try to find a good picture of what she was wearing. No, that's actually too much fabric. It was really short. I'm trying to find a short hot Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Guys, I think I got the money. Okay. You see that, chat? Okay, so a hot pantsuit is TLDR. I don't know why I keep saying TLDR. But in summary, a hot pantsuit is characterized by very short shorts. Now, this girl was wearing the short shorts, and it covered up to here, like this. And then it kind of went down, and then went like this. And it was a one piece. But the back, there was no back. The straps crisscrossed along the back like that. And she was like this. She was positively rotund. And her face, the nose was flattish. Kind of like a pig. And her hair was this lanky, light brown hair that just, look guys, okay? I just told everyone that I'm like a 4 or a 5. This girl was like a 1 or a 2. And she obviously had probably, I feel sorry for her. I offer her my condolences, but I think she had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So this is where your ovaries are so damaged, basically, that you will continue to gain weight. You may even get hair on your face because of hormonal imbalances. But get this, your boobs don't grow. Your boobs don't grow. They may remain quite flat. So she had no booba. No booba. So it was so she was on all levels, as far as I'm concerned, she was ugly. So Karn, just to let you know, this person, she could have looked better dressed properly. She could have looked better dressed properly, but I think the shape of her face was just, what if she was trans? No, she was a girl. She was absolutely, I mean, I wasn't necessarily looking for trans people at that time, but I'm pretty sure she was a girl. But we all know that my history with figuring out people's gender can be a little iffy, but I'm fairly certain she was a girl. But Karn, even if she dressed really well, I'm telling you. Yeah.
Number 4, lack of story involvement. So here's a question for you. Do your female characters affect the plot? Or are they just serving sort of as prop pieces for your male characters? Now, a great test to determine this is the Mako Mori test, which comes from the movie Pacific Rim. And it simply asks, do you have a female character who has an independent story arc that doesn't just support the male story arcs? Now, Mako Mori inside the movie actually is a great example of this. She survives an attack as a child, but then loses her parents, seeks revenge, and wants validation from her adopted father, Pentecost. She is definitely not a sidekick character. She is a standalone character in her own right. Now, if you want a book that fails the Mako story test, I'll give you an example. The 23 books of The Adventures of Tintin, or if you're French, Tonton, written by Hergé. So in this book, female characters are almost non-existent. If they appear, it's like very much in the background, not as major characters at all. Now, maybe your book does feature female characters in a much more prominent role than Tintin does. But you also have to watch out for ideas like the damsel in distress, which is where you have a female character who occupies a very central role, but they're only existing to give the male character something to do, to support the male character's arc. Now, I'll say one more thing about this. Everything I've said so far in this video has been about female protagonists, main characters who are women. It's just as important to make sure the background characters, like the extras in your novel, also are sometimes female, right? Females are 50% of the population, so don't make all the background characters just a default of men. Now it is time for the 5th mistake.
Well, okay. Okay. There was this whole trend, I'm sure chat remembers, where everyone was racing around trying to figure out how a gential woman was, how many women were in the book. And there was this whole like testing little rubric that they would go around and start checking books off, whether they had enough women in there and if the women were enough agency. I'm going to come out and say it. I think it depends on what you want to do as an author. Okay. Because I think this is so stupid. I actually think this point is really dumb. But as usual, I thought it was dumb when I first heard about it years ago. All right, I'm writing a book about a single man who is walking across the road when Truck Kun hits him. But instead of going to heaven or hell, he's transported to an alternate universe where Earth has been decimated with a horrific virus that targets XY chromosomes. He is the only dick on the planet. There's just so many women. Okay, so how can I say this? It really just depends on your book. Like, I'm not going to go after a book that's written about a guy that's stuck on a planet with a whole bunch of women. Death by Snoo Snoo. Like, honestly, this is... Now, I will say this, okay? I will say this. I have read fan fiction about male characters and female characters where the side characters or even the main characters are not developed well. I think that if you have any character, male or female, that lacks development and is constantly static, you might have to ask yourself, what is the point of this character? Now, I hate to break it to these people, but sometimes your character, whether it's male or female, is a foil or a catalyst, which means that they will not change and they are simply setting a whole thing in motion. And some people are the MacGuffin in a sense. They are the MacGuffin. So once again, it's great if there is depth, if the person has some agency, if there's meaning to why they are there. But to suddenly hand wave away a book because it has a damsel in distress in it, gasp! I mean, what if it's that person's niche? What if they just want to write about damsels in distress and they're the only one out there? Of course, I don't want to see a whole industry.
Which is a lack of
psychology. Okay, we all know what's going to happen next. But like if the whole industry was just damsels in distress, I would have a problem. But that's not a problem. That's not an actual systemic issue. What are we talking about here? I think it's okay for an author to decide that their brand is going to be damsels in distress or man in distress. Like, or what if they just want to write about whole casts of men or whole casts of women? Do you know one of my favorite films to watch is Ocean's 11, because it's just a whole bunch of bros doing a bro thing together and they're all kind of attractive in their own way. It's like a smorgasbord of men. You got the black man, you got the Asian man, you have Rusty, who I was, yum. Then you have Matt Damon, if you kind of like the short white man thing, who's kind of stocky. Then you have George Clooney. Like, there's just like, it's like, ooh, buffet. Now, you have Julia Roberts. You have Julie Roberts doing her thing. Pretty interesting lady, actually. Very interesting side story there, but fairly simple side story, really, right? Fairly simple side story. Woman sick and tired of man's shenanigans. Man does a moral thing to get woman back. Woman realizes man she's now with is just as immoral as the man she left. Goes with the first amoral man. Okay, so she's kind of messed up, but all that to say, she doesn't have to be major because that's not what the movie is about. The movie is about Ocean's 11. Now, she is the catalyst. She is the reason why Ocean is doing what he's doing. But we don't need her to do anything else because that's not about her. Now, if every single thing that I was consuming was only about the woman, or only about the booba, or only about the damsel in distress, or only about males in distress, or only about males being annoying and being babies, I would get upset. What does chat think? Shay's back. Hello, Shay. We're making fun of women. Yes, we kind of are. Why is there K-pop on my screen? Hot suits. Cue Snape voice. I may vomit. No one should wear the PJs in public. Just be happy it didn't rip and fly off. You're tall and have green eyes with fair skin. That's minimum 7 here. Well, thank you, Karn. That's thank you. Your base dowry would be 50K. Oh, that's nice. Based Frenchman. This YouTuber sounds like, oh, well, I mean, he might be gay. I don't know. What if bro also had ED after Isekai? It's a movie exactly like that. I stream for how long? I watched the Predator movies for that same reason. Was a romance plot movie. It's romances and all those. It sounds like he's forcing people to include women just for the sake of diversity, as per usual. See, this is my issue, right? Like, he is actually repeating something that was a big topic like 5 to 10 years ago. There was this whole thing. I forget what they called what was it called? There was like an actual rubric name for the test, and I kind of try to erase my mind of it because it was sheer lunacy. Now, when I was writing Distortions in Time, one of the best praises I received from people was that my side characters all had the appearance of, okay, that's a keyword here, the appearance of having internal, individual, separate lives. And that's actually not easy to do. It's not easy to achieve in side characters. So if your women are the side characters because your males are the main character, it is difficult to achieve that inner world in your side characters. So this is actually a writing problem more than a diversity problem. We should just be asking ourselves, are all of our characters diverse? And if they are not diverse, is it because they're playing a specific literary role? And what is that role, and am I using it well? And then after that, if people come after you, you can tell them to shut the fuck up, Sherlock Holmes style.
Psychology. If in your book you have a female walking alone at night and you never have once come into her head that she might be scared for her safety, you're not really tapping into what a woman would think in that circumstance. Another example, if you have your female lead travel to a country like Egypt by themselves and not think of their own physical safety, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Is he an Islamophobe? But he's okay. Okay, this is a tough one. So first off, I want to say that a lot of people in chat know that I am a little dismayed by the lack of archetypal energy and mythology in books. I think the over focus on psychology has been damaging to the spiritual numinous feeling that books can have. And the over focus on psychology can actually ruin an aesthetic moment. So I actually dislike the overwhelming push for people to be psychologically real all the time. And I'm sorry, this comes from men as well. You have all these men like, I want realism. Stop it. That being said, if you are writing a legitimate story, like a literary fiction or a general fiction or a drama, not a romance, although some romances could have this as well. But if you're writing a story about a woman and the woman doesn't have any awareness of her safety at any time, she is either Chieko or you're writing her wrong, because most women at some point in time have a thought in their head somewhere like, is this okay? Is this fine? Now, this thought isn't even necessarily even thought. It's just second nature. It's just like you, how can I say this? I am a very big girl. I'm very tall. I would walk home at 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m., up a hill in a city that was extremely white trash. We would have homeless people who were crazy roaming the streets. And there was a woman who was, I believe, raped, if not killed, about 15 feet away from my apartment. I think she was raped. I think she was just raped. She might have been beaten as well. Anyhow, how can I say this? This was the neighborhood I lived in. And I would walk home alone at 1:30 a.m. But do you think I was like completely out of my mind? No, obviously not. Even I, who am fairly like, woohoo, would I would take care to walk a certain way and to walk a certain path, because any woman walking around or traveling around does think about this on some level. And it doesn't need to be obvious and it doesn't need to be constant, but it should be there. So if you're trying to do a deep dive of a woman's psychology, then you could have that in there. But maybe your female doesn't care about safety or doesn't think about safety as much, like me, for example. Like I don't usually think about stuff like that because I don't go outside. But anyhow, then yeah, obviously you got to get female psychology down. You got to get female psychology down, especially if you're writing drama, like real life, slice of life stuff. You're going to have women. You need to know what women are complaining about in their head all the time. Like that's, obvious. It sounds like he's right about Egypt. Yeah. The irony here is that we're being mansplained about writing women, just saying. Yeah. He's even using his best mansplaining voice. Replace books with humanity. I don't walk through a parking lot without being on alert. In the snow, uphill, both ways. Yeah. Without shoes. Yes. No shoes. Who needs shoes when there's like needles lying around? Like, yeah, I'm okay with just getting ill from crack needles. But anyhow, I agree that if you're writing any novel that involves human psychology, you better do your homework about the human that you are representing. But I don't like this idea that women have to be thinking all the time about this thing or that thing, because women are different from other women. So instead, I would not view the psychological question as just a woman thing. I would view it as, what is her personality or his personality if you're writing about a guy, and what are their fears? What is their direction of growth? Where did they start from? Where are they going to end up at? This kind of stuff. So I think he's right about the fact that sometimes people lack realistic psychology. I just think psychology these days is overrated.
When I traveled through Egypt, I was with a woman, and the number of catcalls that she got walking down the street with me right next to her, was astonishing. So, you just have to be aware of these things as a guy. This is the female experience in the world. The second thing you have to pay attention to is the...
Well, especially if you're in certain parts of the world, sure. Yeah. And if she's a certain kind of woman, yeah. Yeah. But once again, some women will revel in that and some women won't. Some women will feel ashamed because of that and go home and scrub their skin off because they were, let's say, traumatized at an early age. And some women won't give it a second thought. Right? It depends on what woman are you writing. And it depends on it depends on what man you're writing, because the same thing goes for men. Now that I said he's mansplaining, I cannot unhear it. Yeah. I think his advice is about writing mainstream books. Yeah. I think if you're writing gen fic, lit fic, general fantasy, general sci-fi, like very mainstream books, and you have a diverse cast in your book, then obviously you need to do your due diligence and study your psychology. Obviously, the men shouldn't just be angry individuals who want to shoot everything at first sight. Like, if you're trying to do something complex and nitty gritty and realistic, obviously do your psychological research. Hello. This should be 101 for everything, not just women. Don't know. Anyway, probably ran out of points and decided to shove this here in the middle.
social. Sometimes men will write women and the women won't have any close female friends at all. They'll be very socially isolated. It just doesn't take into account like how women exist in the world. This is what the Bechdel test was actually created to measure, because you have to have two female characters who are both named and they're talking to each other about something other than a guy. And the third thing I want to say about psychology is make sure you get tricky stuff like infertility right. To write a woman who is struggling with infertility, you have to work on really getting their psychology right. How hurtful it is to struggle with something like that. How they feel socially. How it affects how they relate to their partner. How it affects how they think about themselves as a woman. And plus, you just have to know like medical procedures like the turkey baster method and exactly how many needles and shots it takes to go through a process like IVF. It's a lot. It is a lot. As someone who did this with my wife, trust me, it is a lot of needles. Way more needles than you would think. A sixth mistake that some writers make.
Sorry, guys. I muted myself because I wanted to eat my fries because they're cold. And then I was talking. Party probably was like, what the Sorry, everyone. Okay. I'll try to re-say this again. If you are, as a man, you're trying to write about something as serious as, let's say, a woman going through infertility, yes, do your homework, know what the procedures are. You should be doing your homework anyway as a writer for anything. What if you want to write about a man going through colon cancer? Know what you are doing. Like, just know what you're doing. Am I fine now? Yeah, I should be fine now. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Hello? Chat? Yes. Okay. All right. However, this whole Bechdel test is complete shit. It's fucking throw it in the garbage. Throw it in the garbage. Throw it in. Okay. Could you imagine going to the Bechdel test and applying the Bechdel test to the Amazon romance novels? Right? So this is guy on guy romance. Do you think there are a lot of women in there? Do you think that there are a lot of women talking to other women about a man in there? No. Because the whole point of that genre is to have as few females, maybe on the side, you can have like a side character female who's, like the twink's best friend, but she's not talking to another woman about your two main male love interests. The lack of women in those books is there for a reason. Doesn't mean that's bad. So this whole Bechdel test is absolute crock. Okay, let's keep going.
When writing about female characters is no agency. Does the female character in your story make decisions that are independent of men? I'm talking about choices, real choices. So here's an exercise for you. I want you to choose one of your female characters and list every decision that they make in your book. But these decisions, they have to affect the plot in some way. They have to be decisions of consequence. And also, romantic decisions about men don't count. I'm looking for other types of decisions. Now, a test to see whether you're doing well in this category is the sexy leg lamp test. This got its name from the sexy leg lamp in the...
I'm writing a book right now. One of the three main characters is female. She shares the point of view of the narrative with the other main male character. There's a secondary, almost main male character. So there's two main male characters, kind of, but one doesn't have a narrative voice. And the girl obviously has made some decisions that have greatly affected the narrative. I don't know how you could avoid that. You would have to be an absolute donkey of a writer. You probably also effed up your other male writers if you can't sort out the motivations and decision making of the female characters. If your female characters are struggling to make an adequate decision, chances are your male characters are also just coincidentally going along with whatever plot is going on in order to make it go on. Yeah.
Christmas Story, and it basically asks, can your female character be replaced with a sexy leg lamp and it won't make a difference in your story at all? Applying a test like that to your fiction, make sure you don't have like a strong female character that's maybe action oriented or just physically strong or something, but they don't make any decisions that actually affect the plot. A seventh mistake that I feel is very common is stereotyping women. I feel like there are two ways that you could possibly stereotype your female characters. One would be just have a character with all female traits, like very feminine traits. Baking, interior decorating, yoga, gardening. It might be a good idea to throw in at least one trait which isn't stereotypically feminine, so they feel like a real human being rather than a caricature. Yet on the opposite side of the spectrum, I do think there's a problem with having a female character with zero feminine traits at all. This is usually called the man with boobs type of writing because the author couldn't trouble themselves to actually learn how to write an authentic female character. This is why I really dislike the writing advice to write a man and then just swap them into a woman, because you're not really taking the time to step into the truth of who your character really is. And one last thing to look out for when you're in danger of stereotyping female characters is authorial insertion. And this is when it's painfully obvious that a male author is trying to say, hey, this is a real woman I've created on the page. See, she's examining her boobs in a mirror, or she just got her period. And usually this happens on like page 2, and it's just so transparent. I'm like, okay, I see you trying. I see you trying on the page now. I see you, the author, rather than the character. Now we are down to our very final mistake when writing women, and I think it's probably the one.
Actually, I agree with this point. Going all female, all feminine, and all masculine is a mistake for writing women. And guess what? For writing men as well. I think if you have a hyper feminine woman, there has to be a point to that. If you have a hyper masculine woman, there has to be a point to that. But to suggest that you just write a man and then put some boobs on there and then you got a woman, I think that's a mistake. And I think that's a mistake that Hollywood seems to be making for some bizarre reason. You can't just smack a pair of boobs onto a man and be like, voila, we got a strong woman now. Because that's not how most women are actually thinking. It's a very, 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 very rare psychological subtype for a woman to actually think entirely like a bro. Like that's almost to a point where she might have mental illness. And vice versa, by the way. I don't like it when a guy is all bronze in a book and there's nothing else going for him. The reason why I like Caiaphas Cain and Watanabe from PGR is because both of these men are military men. One of them, however, is a cowardly, charismatic idiot with a penchant for goodness somewhere in between. And you're excited to read the next page because you're going, what's he going to do next? Is he going to run away next, or is he actually going to be a bro next? And the same thing, well, not the same thing, but with Watanabe from PGR, he's like this grounded, powerful person who also has a deep, caring, fatherly love and attention for the people that he has taken under his wing, and he is protecting them. And I recently did like an intimate scene with him, air quote intimate, because it's just dialogue. Trust me, there was nothing there, chat. It was anyway. And he basically like tries to cook you a cake, and the cake flops, and it's basically just a crepe. And it was adorable because it showed him in the kitchen doing what is technically, historically considered to be a woman's role, right? But there's an intimate feeling when he does it, and he's trying to make this cake for you, and it feels great. They weren't afraid to take him into that space because he was strong enough to handle it. So, yeah. Welcome back, Epic. We're looking at 8 ways your writing reveals that you don't understand woman. Some of his points are okay, but some of them he's clearly just parroting some current ideas. Like he mentioned the Bechdel test, which would obviously fail in certain genres. And I think there's, if you took this writing advice too seriously as a beginning new writer, male writer, I'd be very worried. I think you would come away with some, maybe I should be doing 8 ways your writing reveals that you don't understand women, because like there's just a few things in here that I feel are, I don't know. It felt a bit too parody for me, a bit too much of a parrot. I've just decided I'm going to write a female character that screams and faints in every stressful situation. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. These people never acknowledge that stereotypes exist for a reason. Well, once again, the important part, I think, would be to try to make that stereotype that you are leaning into for that woman meaningful for that character, and see how those choices that he or she decided to make, how they impact them and the people around them. Boobs on a Man pretty much describes every young adult girl boss character to a certain degree. It depends on the young adult book, because some of them, the women, are very annoying, in my opinion. Chico was caught in 2040 being Troonphobic. No woman writers in don't write a man and then put boobs on it. They write a woman and then give them every male characteristic and remove female traits. Yeah, that's basically what I said. Ironically, my one female character is based on a real woman I know. Smart. That's a good way to go. I would always recommend men watch the women in your life. And I don't mean in a creepy way. I mean, sit and watch them and see how they interact with other women, with other men. Maybe talk with them. If you can find a woman who's fairly average, and ask some meaningful questions, like how did you feel in that moment, or stuff like that. Like it's helpful. It can help you understand how to write a realistic woman who is neither too wimpy nor too girl bossy. There is an in-between, by the way. There are lots of women who are very happy with an in-between woman who has tons of flaws and is also very capable. Yeah, okay.
That a lot of you were expecting when you came to this video. It's number 8, cliched female description. So I'm gonna highlight 3 mistakes when describing female characters. 1 is reducing your female characters to body parts. And this is particularly problematic when it's the body parts that men might notice first. Hips, boobs, waist, hair. Let's look at a satirical example of how you should never write a female character. Cassandra woke to the rays of sun streaming through the slats, cascading on her naked chest. She stretched, her breasts lifting with her arms as she greeted the sun. She breasted boobily to the stairs and titted downstairs. I mean, that's a satire, but I think there's a grain of truth in that, is that some men write women focusing far too much on their chest. Don't be like that. Please don't be like that. A second common mistake when...
Okay, so do you remember how I said in the Billion Wicked Thoughts review, they broke down how men write romances versus how women write romances? Men who write romances for themselves do tend to focus on the body, okay? And they are more likely to use cruder language when writing their romances. Now, Does that make it wrong? I actually don't think so. Because it's part of who and what they're writing for. So we can't go after them for that because that's the point. You know what I mean? I don't have to like it, but it's not being written for me. So, you know, it is what it is. Going after guys for that is stupid. However, if they're writing general fiction or literary fiction, I should imagine that someone somewhere reeled a bro back in and is like, hey, you can't just describe her hips and tits like that, right? So I imagine that beginner writers do have to sometimes get a reality check about their writing style. But honestly, just because a guy is focusing on the female's form, in some situations, I think it's absolutely fine and no one should be going after them. It's only if you're writing like mainstream stuff and you want a woman to enjoy it. If you want a woman to enjoy it, don't be crass. Keep it classy. And then you will reel those ladies in. Sounds great. Chieko has officially given me permission to leer at my No, I have not. Well, I mean, go ahead, Herman. Enjoy yourself. I'm not sure if this is a sign of how awful I am at writing one, but I'm like, I just write people. That's generally how you probably should go about it. And then there are some quirks, Epic. Once again, if you're wanting to write drama or literary fiction, I'd be a bit more careful, right? I'd look into some female psychology because there are some things that women are a little bit different from guys, right? Women are tend to be more security conscious, for example. But once again, you can just write people and they just so happen to be guys and girls. It has to make sense, though. I'm going to include that in my next book somehow. Why does he hate boobs? I don't think he hates boobs, MB. I think what he's trying to say, and I agree with him to a certain degree, that if you're writing for a certain audience, know what that audience is looking for and don't be crude. And I think that's a fair request of anyone, male or female, right? But if you're writing for, let's say, male romance, male-centric romance, then, you know, go for it. It's sort of funny, you know, growing up in a very conservative Jewish Orthodox community, I'm used to women being honored, matriarchs or matriarchs in training. Interesting. Very interesting. I'd probably want to pick your brain about how that would work socially, Willie. But anyway, let's keep going. Focusing on numbers.
Describing women is to focus on the numbers. Sometimes I'll see female characters introduced and they'll be like, she was 5'7", 113 pounds, C-cup breasts. 1, the dimensions are highly improbable. And then 2, it's like introducing a male character by focusing on bicep girth and genital girth. It's just tacky and weird. Now, if you're introducing a Jack Reacher sort of character, not Tom Cruise Jack Reacher, but Alan Ritchson Jack Reacher, then yeah, of course you can focus on something like size. But when you list women's measurements, it's like you're putting them up for sale on Craigslist or something, and it's just very cringy and very tacky.
Yeah, that's true. He's absolutely right. Don't write your descriptions in a weird and creepy way. That's absolutely correct. 100%. And that goes both ways. A lot of guys make fun of how women write about men in romantasy or romance books. And the reality is there is something to be said about that, especially in the lower level crappy writing tiers. But the higher level romance stuff is actually really careful about how they describe the men. And it's not like, oh, they're all like, let's just say they're not breaking it down. So, they mention the height, they mention the shoulder waist ratio, they mention all of those things, but they do it in a way that is very organic and realistic. In the higher tier level executions. In the lower tier, it can be just as bad going the other way.
And then lastly, when describing women, I would beware of some overused adjectives. Stuff like dainty, petite, slender, or curvy, busty, hourglass. I think I might get some pushback on this in the comments, but let's be clear. I'm not trying to ban these words. I'm not saying never ever use these words. I'm saying if you find yourself using words like this semi-frequently, then I think you have to check yourself and be like, is this a cliched, male-centric vision of a woman? Is there a better way that I can describe her other than focusing on what is sexually attractive about her? I hope that was helpful.
I when it comes to use of adjectives, period, don't overuse the same adjectives. Try to avoid repetition. Try to use unique adjectives, but don't use too many unique adjectives because then you sound like you're trying too hard and then you sound weird. Try an in-between where you're using some cliched adjectives and then smatter in interesting adjectives to kind of liven things up. If you are constantly referring to the same woman over and over again as curvy, let's say, you got a problem. And it's nothing to do with respecting women. It has everything to do with being a terrible writer. I wouldn't be going after you. Oh my gosh, I feel so disrespected. You wrote the word curvy for, Jeanette in this book over and over again. No. We'd be going after you because your writing is shit. That's why I would be going after you. Try not to repeat the same adjectives for a character unless you're trying to make a point about something or there's an important refresher you need to make before a plot point comes up related to that. Now, I want to know how big her boobs are. Well, once again, it depends on the story. If you are writing a romance by a guy for guys, that's going to be different than by a girl for girls. And the problem is, I think that guys' stuff sometimes when they're writing for guys in the romance genre, they bundle it into the girls section and the girls don't know. And then they pick it up and they read it and they feel yucky. In the same way that Wooly might feel yucky after reading an Otome game. And so this is an issue where I think women should be judging the book, or any literary analyst needs to judge the book based off of its individual merits in relation to its audience. I think the lack of people knowing how to analyze a book is very clear to me, because you just have, I don't like it. I do like it. I had fun. I didn't have fun. People don't actually know how to critically analyze things in an objective way anymore. It comes off as knee-jerk reactions that are just emotion-based or ideologically based. It's kind of gross. And I don't. No. Okay. It is now 11:05. I actually do have to go and write. Believe it or not. Crazy. I gotta do writing. I thought maybe I would keep the stream up and then just quietly type, but I might actually just go and try to get some writing done on my own. I wanted to hang out more with you guys, but I have writing goals I need to meet. But I want to say thank you to everyone who came today. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to decide whether I want to keep doing the write-a-thon or not. But I want to at least achieve the first milestone and say I got that. If I do decide to keep going, things will be busy for the next couple of weeks then. Because I'm dealing with some extra side work. You won't believe it, chat, but I actually had to go back to that client. You know, that client with that that book that's currently still being edited. Yeah, I had to go back in there and tweak some sentences because the editor, the editor is struggling with the client. Let's just say that. So I had to go in and be like, okay, I got to referee with, anyway, it's a long story, but in summary, I have to writing goals. Yeah. But if I reach out to you on Discord, it's because I want to touch base about this or that. But generally speaking, thank you to everyone for coming in. I'm going to actually be responsible and go do some writing because I need to do it. But maybe I shall be back. Potentially on Tuesday, I might be doing some Final Fantasy XIV. So if anyone wants to chill in Final Fantasy XIV with me, we're going to be finishing 7.0, 7.1, doing a little bit of 7.2. So if you want to come and chill, that might be happening on Tuesday, as far as I know. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, that's about it. Okay, so thanks everyone. Thank you for chatting in stream. I really appreciate everyone. And this is where I'm going to call it. So I'll see you around soon. And take care, everyone.